Alright, hello everyone. I'm going to be talking about how to troubleshoot a rasterized file for laser cutting. So when a file is rasterized, in the shop we see one of two things. In this case, you can see the file looks kind of funky. This, of course, right here is the file that we want to see, nice and clean. You can see all the lines. We can see here this shows up black and white. We can only view all the lines if we zoom in. This is one case of rasterization. Sometimes it also ends up with like a dashed line around it. If we look at how long this file would take to run, it would run for 14 minutes and 5 seconds. Our good file here runs for 49 seconds, and this would have the etch lines and cuts all the way through. The rasterized file would simply try to kind of etch and engrave this whole piece, so you would not end up with any cut-through lines, and it would take obviously quite a bit longer. And so we don't want any of this. Another way rasterization appears is like this. Again, we can't view all the lines unless we zoom in. They look like there's lines missing when we're zoomed out. These lines look really thick. We can see this nice thin line here is what we want to see. These thicker lines mean that they were line weights set in the file. So let's take a look first at this type of rasterization. So we look in our file here. The type of rasterization appears if you have your output type set to raster. Also, if you don't have your display color, it won't show up that way, but mostly it's changing this to the vector output. If it's set as raster, it'll appear as that full rasterized form without trying to consider any sort of vector line work. The vector line work allows the laser cutter to run directly on top of it. The raster runs sort of like a normal printer does, back and forth. So we always want to make sure that your output is set to vector, and then your output color is set to the display color or otherwise. So that first one, we simply want to change that raster to vector. For our second type of file here, which we saw in the UCP, that has these lines that are thicker and disappearing as they're coming out, that is caused by having line weights set in your file. So you always want to make sure you create your own laser cuts settings and make sure there's no print width set to them. So in Rhino, we can set these simply to default. Hairline also works, but default is the safer bet. If you create new layers for your laser cutting, it'll already be set to default. As you can see, any layer created in Rhino will always default to default. So if it's set to default then, and we hit print, we have our vector output, our display color, and then our line width, the default line is then set to hairline. This will produce, we'll hit print from this setting, go into our UCP, and then we end up with the good file. See, we can see that there's all the lines in this set, and it'll get to run for 50 seconds. So with this other one that was rasterized, it also would have taken some 14 seconds, and that just is quite a bit longer than what we need, and we still wouldn't have gotten the pieces that we wanted. So you mainly want to watch out for your print widths to make sure you don't have any line weights set, and also make sure that this output type is set to vector. That's the main things you need to avoid in order to avoid rasterization. Thank you. Bye.